Hi, good morning. Well, it's morning when I'm recording this. I don't know when you'll be watching it. Have you ever been to a conference, convention, workshop, some kind of event where you spend 1 or 2 or 3 days sitting in uncomfortable chairs in conference rooms, wandering through the buffet lineup at mealtime, and working your way through the crush of people at every instance of you end a session, go to the washroom, race to the next session. And you come away from these conferences exhausted physically and a bit worn out emotionally too, because you're sort of juggling what has to go on at the office, what's happening on your cell phone and your email, and at the same time trying to focus on the conference. In the virtual world of Pandemicville that we're all in now, I think this becomes even tougher. We certainly lose the face-to-face handshakes and the scrums in the hallway, but we also have the other kinds of interruptions, what's going on our desk, the phone calls in our office. We pop in and out of sessions to catch some nuggets or hear a key presenter that we want to get to know. And I found this recently with a conference I attended. It was 3 days, a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, when I had a very busy work schedule, a very busy calendar, a lot of things to work on. But most of what I had to work on was at my desk. So you're working at your desk on one computer and you've got the other computer on and you're watching or listening. There's the perception that you can multitask and do all these things. You can't, of course, but we all do it because we can now with technology. We can sort of have several things on at once. It's like having 3 televisions side by side and checking for what's on and what else is on. I had something happen. I wouldn't call it a breakthrough. In some respects, it was a reflection back on experiences I've had before, where you attend a conference or something, and you come away with that. Of all the business cards in your pocket, there's one gem, that person you want to follow up with, or you're just holding on to that card because it was a really cool card. It gave you some ideas about how you could redo your card. But more often it's something that person said or did or presented about or commented on in a conversation that deserved follow-up, deserved having a trigger to not forget it. And I think if you go to a conference for a day or even multiple days and you come away with one of those gems, whether it's the note you made, the key phrase you wrote down, the message you took, or the new business idea or new solution to a problem that has been dogging you, that suddenly some person either directly or quite innocently dropped into your brain. I had a couple of those in the last few days, and I want to talk about them because I want to record them to refer back later so I don't forget, and also so I might share them with you, meaning anyone who watches this. The first one, and the most dramatic, which gives rise to this recording, was a presenter who said, don't worry that you can't get on a stage today because nobody's hiring public speakers to speak on stages at conferences and conventions. We're all facing that. We're doing some virtual things and we're doing them for free, or we're doing them at a discounted rate because people are managing their way through different things. And yet we know the economy is recovering. People do have money, people have budgets. Not necessarily the same people who had money and had budgets before the pandemic. As Warren Buffett often said, when the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked. I think that's true in the investment world when people are maybe doing things that aren't the best things, and suddenly circumstances change and oops, they're overextended or they plan poorly. But this particular suggestion of sitting in front of a camera every day, perhaps having an accountability partner that you exchange with who is confirming that you're doing this every day. For three purposes. Number one, rather than writing, because some people can't write, but they want to get their thoughts out, record their thoughts, work through their thoughts in their brain by talking about them. That's one point of this exercise. Another one is for people who are public speakers or wish to be public speakers to get practice where they can watch their recorded voice. That's a good thing. And if you're rusty, if you're out of practice, it gives you a chance to not only practice everything from your vocal variety and your gestures, your intonation, your timing. It's a little weird because there's no audience to give you some noise or feedback or a chuckle once in a while when you think you said something funny. But it also gives you a chance to look at yourself as others see you. And when I'm on a stage speaking, I don't see me, I see the audience. I see that one person I'm focused on, or that section of the audience over there, the section of the audience over there. And here I'm looking at an audience of one, a camera that appears just above my screen, I think just above the shiny spot on the top of my, everyone gets centered here. I have trouble doing things in reverse. There, the camera is right above me now. And I'm looking at the camera, but I'm not. I tend to look at the screen, and now you can see it. I'm looking at the screen, but if I'm looking up at the camera, am I getting better attention? And I won't really know that for sure until I watch it. But let's get back to this exercise. The fellow's name is Darren LaCroix. He's a world champion speaker in the Toastmasters world, which is where I met him. I met him the summer following, no, not the summer, the autumn following his win. I think it was 2004. He was the world champion public speaker. And I got to meet him and talk to him at a conference. I got to see him replicate the speech with which he won the world championship. And I've seen and heard him many times since. And he was at this 3-day online conference. He's promoting a book that, among other things, promotes this idea of sitting down every day, not just occasionally, not just for a purpose or a project, but every day. Almost like a video diary, but as a presentation to the world who might watch. And he's not so much advocating go post it on YouTube or Instagram or anything like that, but the exercise of doing that every day. And then just start out small with a few minutes. And those of us who spent any time at all in the Toastmasters world, we know there's 2-minute speeches and 7-minute speeches and 10-minute speeches, and occasionally a 30 or 45-minute keynote speech. Because in that kind of environment, that's all you have time for if other people are going to have a chance to speak as well. But what Darren was doing on this virtual conference for 3 days was he spoke for an hour. And most people who speak for an hour, they tend to break it into about 45 minutes of actual presentation and about 15 minutes of Q&A afterwards. I didn't catch all of Darren's presentation, but I caught the nub of it, and I caught the concept, which I readily embraced, maybe more than other people would, because I write every day, and I've been writing every single day at this count here in mid-October of 2021. I think on the first day of fall, it was 18 and a half years exactly. So more than 18 and a half years, I've been writing a column every day, sometimes short, like 60 or 70 words, and sometimes 1,000 words, but more often in the, as I call it, a Getty, the length of the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's famous speech, was 272 words. And that's my target, my sweet spot, a 272 word column that takes about 3 minutes to read. much as Lincoln would have given that fantastic speech of his 77 years ago today that he gave in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A long, long time ago, often heralded as one of the world's greatest speeches, and it certainly is a great one. And I'm very fond of it, and so that's where my 272 words. But I digress. The reason I give myself some flexibility on volume of words in a column I write every day is because I don't always have time. And the not always having time is sometimes you just don't have it on your schedule, or you don't make the time. I'm guilty of that sometimes. But more often it's, I'm not ready to pour out what's on my mind in a fulsome fashion on the page, to write it out, rewrite it, polish it, edit it, cut it down, chop it, slice it, remake it, and sometimes throw it away completely. Because that's what happens with writing, just as it does with public speaking. Very often we work on something, we sometimes work on it for weeks or months, and we practice it and we rehearse it in different venues to only throw it away. Or to set it aside because something better comes into our mind. And though many of us speak on subjects that are very basic to, you know, the line of work we're in. I'm in the real estate business, so I do a lot of talking about real estate work, real estate projects, construction, financing, public-private partnerships, things like that that I've been involved in, or I talk about the market, whether it's residential or commercial real estate. That's my day-to-day work for pay discipline. I'm knowledgeable. I can present effectively to an audience, and I can be effective in either a short or long format. Most of us have a field of work or an area where we're the subject matter expert, or SME, as one friend of mine reminds me that they're called in the training industry. I'm a SME. Yes, it's me. I'm a SME. Well, I find that funny. You might not find it funny. I find it amusing when words and sounds can be playful. But Darren's point was, no, just talk. Just talk. But he's a skilled public speaker. Of course, he doesn't mean just talk. He means have an idea, have a point to make, a presentation to make, and get used to talking in a longer format. And even if you're just talking to your screen and recording it, and you post a file on your website or something, someone may never see it. Or someone might. Someone might say, I want that person to present at my conference or my meeting. So that was the first nugget I took away. And I'm going to try to practice it. Darren advocates doing it every day, to aim for 17 minutes a day and see where that takes you. And eventually, just follow it all along, and you'll have a long talk. And you get used again to talking for a longer period of time in a longer format, whether it's on a stage at a conference or on a virtual Zoom call with a bunch of other presenters at an event. Next nugget from this event that I took away, and it was sort of a very unusual presenter, young woman, very successful at what she does. And she was coaching people on how to get speaking gigs at conferences. And she was talking about all the things that people do wrong. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. With such authority, such passion. And she was rattling things off. Maybe not the most organized presentation, but some powerful points. And she was speaking from experience. She's under 30, says she's very successful at what she does, and she's achieving success. And she talked about a really clever thing, that most often when we want to find people or find things, to go to Google or whatever search engine you're using, type in your search parameters, and you'll go find things. And in her case, she was talking about how to find the people who organize conferences and forge relationships with them. And she said, don't go trying to connect with them or mail them on LinkedIn or services like that. She says, you can Google event planners or convention planners and organizations like that. And you're going to get, the various firewalls of gatekeepers that are going to keep you from the real people who hire people. That's one obstacle. That's what everybody's going to do. And if you do what everybody's going to do, you're going to achieve the same results as everybody else. You're going to build a mailing list of the wrong people in the right organizations, and you'll be beating your head against the wall. She didn't say that, but that was the message. And I found this really curious, because what she did was, it was a little instructional. She shared her screen and she showed how to do it. And it was so dead simple. She gave it away. I took it away as a nugget. I'm going to pass it along in this talk to you. She said, go to Google, and then up in the corner, click on images. In this case, she said, type in conference organizer. No, sorry, no, I made a mistake there. Business conferences. That's all she typed in into her search function in Google Images. And what came up were all kinds of photographs of conferences and conventions. Okay, that's nice. She then picked one. She didn't pick them at random. She didn't scroll down to her favorite. She just picked the top one in the corner. She clicked on that, and it had been posted by somebody who's in the business, and the drop down were 10 different conferences. So she went to the first one, clicked on it, and there's this page about a conference like 3 years ago. And you'd think, well, that's stale information. And she said, no, look up in the corner, and there it was, 2021 virtual conference. Clicked on that, went through to the conference organizers, and suddenly there's email addresses and names of the key people, phone numbers, and it's just a matter of capturing that information, putting it on the mailing list, or putting it on a spreadsheet or something to keep track of who these people are, because you never know when you're going to need or want to contact them or want to reach out to them with a specific offering. Brilliant, brilliant. I know there's Google Images. People put all kinds of photographs and images on the internet. And I've never gone looking for anything through the Google Images. I'm sure I can mine that for a lot of ideas and information and connections, because that's the business we're in, right? We're selling our service to coach a group of people or speak to a convention or provide a specific service or consult with someone. Everybody wants that kind of work. But how do you get it? Well, you get it from people you have a relationship with. Don't we all know that? We're bombarded by emails and websites and things in our good old-fashioned snail mail boxes. Everybody wants our attention. Everybody wants to give us something for free if we pay them a fee. And that's the world we're in today. And I think an awful lot of people much younger than me, I think of my children, I think of my grandchildren, and they're in a totally different world of sales and marketing and providing service and building relationships with people than I and people of my generation. But I think we don't have to be old thinking. We can be young thinking, no matter what age we are. And here we're, one seasoned person I know, Darren LaCroix, talking about something that is near and dear to both our hearts. And he had some really good ideas. And I'm enjoying doing this, what I'm doing right now, talking into a screen. I did so yesterday and the day before. I'm doing it more deliberately today, longer today, and hopefully with more effect today. So thank you, Darren. And to the ladies' name who I can't recall at the moment, who had this clever presentation. I mean, as the presentation goes, hers was all the things you wouldn't want, because she was almost yelling at the screen. She was excited, but more animated than you'd want. You'd want her to slow down, deliver the message a little more deliberately. She didn't. She was shouting it, and she had all kinds of background noise. She was like, can you mute your microphone and get those people to be quiet? Because there was a real clatter, and there were other people doing things very near where she was standing up in front of her laptop computer or phone, however she was transmitting. And she said, no, I can't tell them to be quiet. I'm in their office. They're letting me the space. So she didn't have an office. She didn't have privacy. And in all that cacophony of noise, she gave me a gem. She gave me a takeaway. She gave me something really worth chewing on, and a path to go down of some new ideas and exploration that I've already got a couple in my mind that I'm toying with. That tool of searching through Google Images will enhance my wayfinding to companies, to individuals, and to gather ideas that are out there for sharing for everyone. Not for free, because you got to invest the time, but there are a lot of things available to us. We can have, they're there for the asking, they're there for the clicking, if we only know how to look. And that's an interesting point, isn't it? We know what to look for. It's like, I'm looking for coins on the beach. I can walk along the beach and look for coins, or I could be one of those guys with a metal detector walking along the beach looking for coins. Or somebody can be, offering to clean up the beach for free with a piece of equipment that goes through and churns up the sand and smooths it out again. Who's going to find the most money? Right, somebody who spent some time to develop a better tool, a better way to find something. So maybe that's not the best metaphor to make my point, but a lady whose name I will research, I just don't recall it right now. She was spewing out all kinds of ideas. I mean, she had a long presentation. This is one thing she was presenting on, but it was an idea. So was it worth attending this conference? I got this great idea from Darren, this inspiration, and I'm fulfilling that right now. A young lady with a great tool, not so much a tool, but just a technique to use something that's at my fingertips already differently. It almost makes me think I should go take a course, maybe a course that 12-year-olds take to learn how to use Google, and I'll probably learn a ton. Because someone else only sees the way that they're going to use the tool, not how I might use the tool, what it might be for me. And that's what we want, don't we? When we're talking to any group, whether it's a group of 4 people, because the 200 that were supposed to be there were snowed in and didn't make it, whether the promotion of an event was such that only 30 people showed up. Had one of those lately. 80 becomes 30. But then it gets posted on the internet, and suddenly the 30 turns into 300 and 400 and 500, and who knows how many there will be by the time it's all done. Could be hundreds, could be thousands. And of course, who do we really want to reach? Hundreds or thousands? Just one. We may reach many people, but first we need to reach one person, don't we? Because if we can't reach one person, how could we reach tens or hundreds or thousands? So what's that message? What is that message? In so many different arenas of public speaking, we go, what's that takeaway message? What's that thing you can leave somebody with? That if they take away nothing else from the entire presentation you've made, or the day they've spent, or the 3 days they've invested, other than the memories of talking to some people and some business cards in their pocket and lots of notes that they probably won't read. But that's okay, because note-taking is a really great connect with the brain. But there are things we do that trigger us today, and things will trigger us later on. This brain is the supercomputer, the original supercomputer. It begins recording like a CPU, your central processing unit in your computer. It just doesn't work when you turn it on in the morning and cease working when you turn it off at night. This little noggin, this brain we have inside us, is recording everything. Think about that for a second. Everything. Everything that controls our body, our heart beating, our lungs breathing, our brain functioning. Every part of our body, though it may slow down at night, when we're sleeping, it's still active. Everything's being recorded up here. Doesn't mean we can recall it all immediately. But how often do we say, no, I don't know that song. And then it comes on the radio and we're singing along with it because we know the lyrics. Well, of course we knew them, they were recorded in our mind. And if somebody says, well, what do you remember from the third grade? You might say, nothing. But somebody might mention something. You say, really? I had an experience like that once. It was, yeah, I was in the third grade then. Because we have things that go way, way, way back. And sometimes things only go back to yesterday or to the last weekend, a 3-day session where we have some highlights, some things we take away. Doesn't mean we don't consume it all. Of course we do. But what's the takeaway? So when you're an audience member, not a participant, not a panelist, not a facilitator of an event or a keynote presenter, you're sitting there with your notepad. You're sitting there with your CPU is working. What is it you're taking in? Are you focusing on the speaker, or are you distracted by the text message you're sending on your computer or on your cell phone, rather, on your device? We're all hooked up to so many devices these days. Or somebody interrupted you, or somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said, excuse me, can I borrow a couple of minutes of your time? So it's very complicated to distill all these things with one takeaway message. One takeaway message. So what was my takeaway message from that conference? I think there were 3. There was Darren LaCroix's presentation about talking and recording yourself every day. That's pretty marvelous. Secondly, this lady whose name I can't recall, with this really clever technique for searching, not using the typical Google search engine search window, but clicking first on images and then plugging in your search parameters there, that's a wayfinding tool to find the most recently and frequently viewed images connected with the subject matter. And that will in turn lead you to the people who posted them. And often will find you much more readily accessible information on contacting them or reaching out to them or connecting with people who have a common interest in whatever this thing is you are. They may not have the best website or have a blog, but they're passionate about something because they posted a picture about it. For example, suppose I'll make something up here just to make my point. Suppose you're really into butterfly collecting, sorry. You want to collect butterflies. That's your hobby, that's your interest. So you probably are educated better than most people about butterflies. You probably have books and movies and videos about butterflies, and you take vacations without a fishing rod, but with a butterfly net. You're a butterfly nut. How would you find butterfly nuts? You go to your Google, butterfly aficionados, butterfly websites, butterfly whatever. But I bet if you clicked on Google's images function first and clicked on butterflies, you'd find all kinds of images of butterflies. And those would connect you back to butterfly fans, butterfly photographers, photographers who take pictures of butterflies, people who travel all over the world where these butterflies are found. There's a world of butterflies out there. It's not my hobby, or it might be yours, but I use that as an illustration of, I think that we all have something where we would like to better connect with people or businesses that are interested in us, not because they need or want us, but they've got a problem to solve. And maybe we're the right problem solver for them, but how do we find them? How do we meet them? How do we connect them in this 7.5 billion people around a planet that's so interconnected? Why would they hire you or your service as opposed to the tens or hundreds of thousands of people vying for their business who might be where they are, closer to them? But they want passion, right? And what I'm getting at here is the ultimate takeaway, not so much from that conference, which was a 3-day conference about marketing yourself to sell your writing or your speaking or your coaching services. So some of the presenters were weaker, newer folks in the business, but trying real hard. Some had all kinds of gamesmanship, all kinds of cleverness. And one, and I won't name him because I don't want to malign him, his presentation was superb. It was one of the presentations on the first day of this event. He's had enormous success, or at least he was telling us about his enormous success, the large amount of money he's paid to do what he does, how he's now living in a very exotic place because he can do what he does from anywhere. And while he's presenting, he's talking about all the things he can do, all the things that he has to sell, the services and advice he can help people with. He can help them do what he does, or he can use what he does to help you get better at what you do. Wonderful. Contact me for this, email me for that, phone me for this, go to my website. And he's giving all of this information while he's presenting online. Well, while he's presenting online, I'm Googling his website. I'm looking for his information. He gave out his email address and I found the same email address. I sent him a request to connect on LinkedIn. I sent him a direct email while I was online. And I communicated with him in those 2 ways, saying, I really would like to connect. Because I think what he's doing and how he's doing it is something I'd love to collaborate with him on. And maybe I'm going to be his customer. Maybe he's going to be my customer. But I felt some synergy there. You're probably wondering, well, get to the point, Mark. What is the takeaway message? Well, the takeaway message was this. I communicated with him by LinkedIn. I communicated with him direct email. And I communicated with him through the chat function on the Zoom call of the conference. And I'm now recording this 3 days later. 3 days later. This man who markets himself as an expert, as a brilliant formula for success and for process, details, and I went to his website. Oh, wow, it's a really impressive website. It's not schlocky. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not too clever, but it's also not amateurish. It's very professional and tasteful, explains things that's easy to work with, and click on, I'm interested in this, I want information on that. And I'm sure this man doesn't have a team of 50 who had the weekend off and that somebody will get back to me by Monday. He might, but I suspect that the flourish, the presentation, the pizzazz isn't met with performance. And that's the takeaway message for me. I took away not a message that was being presented to me, but an experience that I had. And isn't that how we best market ourselves? We talk about our experiences. And of course, it causes you to look inward. Okay, how many times has somebody responded to something of mine that's out there saying, I'd like to talk to you, Mark. I'd like to email you, Mark. I'd like to have a meeting with you, Mark. Where I say I'm going to get back to someone and I don't do it promptly. Now, we can't all reach out to all of our clients every day or immediately when they send us a routine note or follow-up. But if you did a survey of all your customers, all of your clients, all the people that are on your prospect list, the people you expect to do business with in the next year or the next 18 months, and if you ask them, how often do they hear from you? They tell you. They probably get it a bit wrong. They might say, I hear from you annually, or I hear from you quarterly or monthly. But you also ask them this question. Say, if you need to reach me, how quickly am I likely to get back to you? Because they're the ones who'll send you the email. They're the ones who'll make the phone call. They're the ones who are going to call up angry. You see, that was the other part of this takeaway message. It was not just, here's a guy telling a good story, but not delivering. That triggers in me some self-examination. Well, I'm making some noise about what this guy's doing or failing to do that's so obvious and so simple. And if he wants to sell me his program and get my money in his bank account for what he has to sell, all he needed to do was reply or call or send some kind of electronic response, even if it was an automatic one that went out. Thanks for your email. I'm out of town at a conference. I'll call you back on Monday. None of that. And these things are business 101 today, aren't they? Aren't they the very basics? And of course, in criticizing his failure to be complete, not so much because he's not complete, we all are. We're all a little flawed in this regard, but here's a guy who's making a big pitch. Buy my service, buy my product. Connect with me. Call me, email me. And you do. You do it while he's talking. On the venue where he's presenting, there's a chat room. He could reply or could reply, I'll get back to you later, send me a direct email, which I, of course, have. Not a peep, zero, bupkis, nothing. And why did that trigger a reaction in me? See, we're all full of triggers, aren't we? And the trigger for me is, of course, don't be a smart ass, Mark. Look in the mirror. Do you do that yourself? Have you talked a good story, cultivated relationships with lots of people? But when they need you or want to connect with you, are you as responsive to them? I try to be. I say that I am. I'm conscientious. I'm zealous. I want to do that well. But how well do I do that? And do I do it well all the time? Not as well as I could. Not as well as I could. So the takeaway for me from this presentation, because I intend to share this recording with some people. I think I'm going to share it with Darren. And I'm going to dig out the name of that lady with that presentation that was using someone else's premises to do her presentation. I'm going to find out I'm going to reach out to her because she's given me a great gift that she didn't know she'd given me. She was just giving a tip. It was one of 100 she was blasting out and all kinds of things. Do this and do that and don't do this and don't do that. She gave me a gem, and I'm passing that on to you. I'm passing on to you as well the gem of Darren LaCroix's notion of record yourself. And of course, the takeaway. Because when you're going to give an effective presentation, whether it's a minute at a Monday morning sales meeting. And yes, I publish a thing called Monday Morning Minute that goes out to 25,000 people every Monday morning. So they've got something to chew on over coffee or to open a sales meeting with. 100 words from me and a quote from some famous person that connects to the subject. But whether it's some little thing like that, or whether it's a keynote presentation on a stage for an hour, and I've done those, you know, that's nerve-wracking to prepare for. To be on stage without a note in your hand and go from A to the end of the alpha and omega of your presentation and cover off all the issues you want to cover and not refer to notes or cue cards. Work the crowd, work to the audience, feed off the audience's energy, give the audience some energy and be uplifting. Wow. What's the takeaway message? Because if you're standing on a stage being paid $10,000 to present to a room full of people, whether they're hungover from the night before and just had breakfast and can't wait to get into their day of conference, I've done that on the heels of a superb presenter they'd had the day before, tough act to follow. I know what you know. That if you're at a conference for 3 days, or a seminar or a sales meeting for an hour or a half a day, you want to come away with some value. You want to come away with a nugget or 2 or 3, or a business card in your pocket, or somebody to email, or somebody to follow up with that is giving you something of value that you can then make your life better. Or you're presenting, you're going to make someone else's life better. Otherwise, why do it? What's the point? Why waste the air? Why waste the energy, burn the calories to tell some stories and some experiences to people and hold their attention? Well, I hope I've held your attention. I'm going to wrap up now. My name is Mark Kolke. You can find me on Google. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you reach out to me, I will reply. I promise you that. I may not reply instantly, but I won't go 3 or 4 days without replying to you. And all kidding aside, I've got to go to Google Images and type in my own name and see what pops up. Now, you'll probably do that too soon. So thank you for now. I'm done. My name's Mark Kolke. Have a great day.